Aggression is a functional brain circuit. When trained, it becomes controlled pursuit, not chaos. Deep in the male brain lies a biological system designed not for destruction, but for movement forward under threat, under pressure, under purpose. This circuit includes the medial hypothalamus, the perioductal gray, and brainstem regions that are ancient, sacred engines of pursuit. They are not emotional sparks, they are primal commands. When awakened, they do not create rage. They create direction. They create the neurological conditions for dominance, for clarity, for unshakable forward motion. But without structure, these circuits decay into volatility. Untamed aggression is weakness disguised as strength. Trained aggression is strength refined into authority. Most men are taught to suppress their intensity, to fear it, to bury it under silence and sedation. But the nervous system doesn't forget what it was built for. It remembers war. It remembers hunger. It remembers the pursuit of meaning through resistance. The man who refuses to train his aggression becomes its prisoner. He is ruled by impulse instead of mastering it. The man who learns to shape it becomes a weapon of peace, of fire with restraint, of destruction with vision. This is not philosophy. This is neurobiology. When aggression is channeled into breath, movement, and clarity of task, the neural circuitry transforms. Cortisol lowers, testosterone rises, dopamine becomes precise, vision narrows, and the body obeys the mission instead of emotion. This is why aggression must be ritualized. It must be embedded in action, in lifting and striking, in sprinting, in stillness, in fasting, in cold. These are not random habits. They are sacred practices that pull the aggression circuit into alignment with the higher order of purpose. You are not created to be docile. You are created to carry fire without letting it consume you. You are not called to eliminate the beast. You are commanded to tame it, and taming does not come through denial. It comes through discipline. The nervous system was designed to be shaped by what it repeatedly endures. If it endures softness, it decays. If it endures hardship and order, it fortifies. Spiritual power does not come from rejecting the body. It comes from commanding it. And aggression is the raw power that must be consecrated. It is the untapped holiness of masculine fire waiting to be assigned to a cause. A man without trained aggression cannot lead. He cannot protect. He cannot endure. Because when pressure comes, he will collapse inward. But the man who has trained under intensity, the man who has taken his aggression and fed it through the filter of obedience and structure, he becomes unstoppable. He does not flinch. He does not ask permission. He moves because the circuitry has already decided. This is not mind over matter. This is spirit over biology, commanding biology into submission until the man becomes something the world cannot shake. Aggression is not evil. Untrained aggression is. But refined aggression is the image of a man who knows who he is and what he was made to fight for. Testosterone and dopamine link drive to focus. Their levels follow behavior, not mindset. Most people believe you have to feel ready to act, to wait for motivation or clarity before you move, but biology tells a different story. Action drives chemistry. Behavior sculpts brain state. When you step into resistance, when you deliberately face discomfort, when you challenge your body and deny ease, you initiate a sequence in the nervous system that unlocks power. Testosterone doesn't simply rise from genetics or wishful thinking. It responds to how you carry yourself, how you breathe, how you compete, how you assert your direction. Dopamine doesn't just surge because something feels good. It rises in pursuit. It surges when the body is strained, when effort is applied towards something meaningful. These are not abstract ideas. They are biological rules, and when you learn to obey those rules, you begin to shift your state at will. The man who waits for motivation is at the mercy of his chemistry. The man who understands neurobiology trains his chemistry through disciplined action. When you step into cold, when you fast, when you train until your lungs burn, when you endure boredom to finish what you started, you are not just checking a box, you are signaling to your nervous system that you are a man of action. And your body responds. It adapts. It begins to produce more testosterone because it sees that you are in pursuit. It begins to release dopamine at lower thresholds because it recognizes repetition and reward in progress, not in outcomes. This creates a loop, a closed system where your biology reinforces your behavior and your behavior elevates your biology. You cannot separate drive from action. The circuitry of motivation is not built by sitting still and thinking positive. It is forged when the brain senses that the body is chasing something. And when the pursuit is consistent, the brain rewires the reward to find satisfaction not in arrival, but in the path. That is what makes a man dangerous. Not just that he wants something, but that he has conditioned his brain to keep going after it no matter how far it is. That's not inspiration. That's dominance over the inner state. The problem is never that you lack testosterone or dopamine. The problem is that your habits tell your brain you don't need them. But when you move like a man of vision, when you structure your day around friction, order, and execution, your biology shifts in response. Hormones rise. Energy rises. Will returns. Because your system is no longer confused. It sees that you are not here to coast. You are here to conquer. And the more you live that pattern, the more powerful it becomes. This is the link between behavior and chemistry. This is the protocol for rewiring your drive. And it starts not with a mindset, but with movement, repeated until the man becomes the message. Cold exposure and breathwork unlock latent power by shifting the nervous system into readiness. Your body was not designed for comfort. It was designed for adaptation. And the nervous system doesn't grow stronger by thinking. It grows stronger by encountering pressure and learning how to regulate under it. When you enter cold, real cold, ice, breath, stopping cold, your sympathetic nervous system activates, heart rate spikes, norepinephrine floods your bloodstream, your body panics, and this is where most people run. But the man who stays, the man who breathes through it, is not just enduring discomfort. He is training the circuitry of dominance. He is teaching his nervous system that pressure is not the enemy, that intensity can be met without collapse. That moment, that breath in the cold, is a sacred furnace. It burns off weakness. It sharpens the signal between brain and body, and it builds a kind of internal power that no speed hack cut can replace. Breathwork is not relaxation. It is control. It is the lever to flip the autonomic nervous system between chas and calm. Inhale deeply, hold, exhale slow. You are no longer at the mercy of panic. You are mastering your physiology one cycle at a time. And when this is repeated under pressure, under cold, under stress, the neurons change. The heart learns to slow. The mind clears. The fear recedes. This is not mystical. This is biological. You are using breath as a tool of spiritual warfare, not against the world, but against the part of you that wants to stay soft, stay safe, stay hidden. That part dies in the cold. That part has no voice when the breath is trained. What emerges is not just endurance. It is composure. It is command. When you wake up and plunge into cold, you are telling your nervous system the war has already begun. And the man who begins his day in control of his state does not need to chase motivation. He brings it with him because his chemistry is aligned with conquest, because his physiology has already been shaped by choice, not by mood. The man who breathes through fire, cold fire, internal fire, is the man who enters any environment with the presence of someone who cannot be moved. He doesn't panic when the pressure rises. He's already trained in it. He doesn't flinch when pain comes. He's already submitted to it in silence. This is not a routine. It is a right. The body must know obedience. The nervous system must know the voice of its commander. That voice is breath. That training is cold. And when both are used together, consistently, intentionally, the man who once lived in reaction becomes a force of controlled aggression and still power. He doesn't need to talk louder. He doesn't need to be seen. His nervous system speaks first, and the room answers. Purpose activates the prefrontal cortex. It must be action daily to stay biologically alive. Purpose is it's not a journal entry. It is a biological signal, a neural orientation that sharpens the brain, aligns the body, and strengthens the circuits that separate the man from the animal. Deep in the frontal lobe of the brain, the prefrontal cortex governs long-term vision, restraint, clarity, and execution. It is the throne of intention. But it is not automatic. It must be trained, and it must be engaged through action. When you wake up without direction, the primitive circuits take over. The limbic system floods the body with emotional impulses. The mind becomes reactive, short-sighted, weak. But when you lock your eyes on a mission, a real one that demands order, endurance, sacrifice, the brain rewires itself to support that pursuit. Purpose is not passive. It is the daily rehearsal of values under pressure. Who walks in purpose is not the man with the best idea. He is the man with the strongest pattern. Each time he steps into structure, into silence, into friction, he is reinforcing the prefrontal cortex. He is telling the nervous system, this is the path, stay on it. Don't deviate, delay reward, embrace cost, move forward. And in that repetition, the brain strengthens. Dopamine becomes linked to effort. Discipline becomes chemical, and action becomes identity. This is not a mindset shift. It is a biological transformation of the male nervous system. When you live in alignment with purpose, your brain works differently. Focus becomes sharp. Emotion becomes regulated. Fear becomes background noise. The noise of the world no longer distracts because the internal compass is stronger than the external cast. This is how leaders are built. This is how warriors are shaped. This is how legacy is forged. Not through talk, not through motivation, but through alignment of action with mission every single day. And when this alignment is repeated, the very structure of the brain changes. Neurons fire new patterns. Circuits of control and clarity expand. Your biology becomes the servant of your purpose. But when you abandon purpose, when you delay, when you drift, the brain begins to decay. The circuits that were made for order begin to rot in distraction. The nervous system softens. Focus fragments. Strength withers. This is not a moral failure. This is neurochemical collapse. You cannot be passive with purpose. You cannot treat it like a feeling. You must act before you feel ready. You must train before you understand. You must move while the flesh still doubts. That movement creates the signal, and the signal creates the man. This is how purpose lives. Not in thought, but in blood. Not in ideas, but in behavior. And the moment you stop acting on it, you begin to bury it. The man who rises is not the man who waits for clarity. It is the man whose nervous system is forged by daily obedience to his deeper calling. Repetition under pressure creates identity. The brain builds who you are through what you do consistently. Identity is not something you find, it's something you forge. And it's forged in the circuits of the nervous system every time you act in defiance of weakness, Every time you step into discomfort with discipline, every time you do what must be done regardless of how you feel, the human brain is designed to change itself through experience. This is neuroplasticity. But not all experiences are equal. The ones that shape you most are the ones that come with weight, with resistance, with cost. When you perform a hard task again and again under pressure, you are not just improving performance. You are reprogramming your sense of self at a biological level. Your neurons don't care about your goals. They care about your patterns. They wire and fire based on what you repeat, not what you promise. You can speak words of discipline, but if your actions scream compromise, your brain will adapt to that weakness. If you say you are focused, but live in distraction, your brain will become chaotic. But if you consistently act with precision under load, your nervous system starts building that identity into your baseline state. The man who trains when it's hard, the man who stays composed when he's stressed, the man who shows up even when it hurts, that man is constructing a self that can't be faked. Not on Instagram, not in a journal, not in a moment of hype, but at the deep, rewired circuitry of who he is under pressure. This is why discipline is sacred, because it's not just about accomplishing something, it's about becoming someone. When you train with discipline, especially when it's inconvenient, you're telling your brain, this is who I am. And the brain listens. Synapses strengthen, hormones align, attention sharpens, emotion stabilizes. You don't become a savage by speaking it. You become one by conditioning your brain to act like one in the small, quiet daily moments when nobody sees you. This is identity through repetition, and it cannot be stolen or faked. It must be built through fire. Pressure is the proof of your pattern. Anyone can do the work when it's easy. But when it's hard, when it costs, when it hurts, and you still move, that's when the brain rewires. That's when the man is remade. The stronger the pressure, the deeper the imprint. And that imprint becomes your identity. Not a personality, not a temporary version of you. But the real hardened, structured self who doesn't need to feel motivated because his nervous system has already been trained to obey the mission. Identity is not words. Identity is repetition plus pain plus obedience. You want to know who you are. Look at what you do when it's hard. That's what your brain is becoming. That's what your soul is submitting to. And that is what the world will either fear or forget. You don't suppress your instincts. You channel them through structured protocols that hardwire dominance. The masculine nervous system is not built for silence, sedation, or softness. It's built for forward motion, for war, for challenge, for clarity under fire. Inside every man is a primal signal to conquer, to defend, to build, to lead. But when that instinct goes untrained, it becomes misdirected. It turns into aggression with no aim, distraction with no progress, rage with no discipline. You were not created to bury your strength. You were created to refine it, and that refinement only happens when your instincts are given structure. Structure is not limitation. It is liberation for power. It gives your body and mind something to obey higher than impulse. A man without structure is a slave to mood. He eats when he's bored, scrolls when he's anxious, delays when it's hard, and collapses when it's time to act. But a man with structure is governed by something deeper than emotion. His day is not reactive. It is ritual. His breath is not random. It is trained. His aggression is not wild. It is sacred. The protocols he builds, the waking time, the cold exposure, the fasting, the lifting, the silence, the writing, the stillness, the movement. All of it forms a container for masculine energy to be purified. Without these rituals, the nervous system becomes chaotic. Testosterone plummets, dopamine scatters, focus disappears. But when the man obeys structure, his biology sharpens. His instincts are no longer unpredictable. They become tools in the hands of a disciplined mind. You were not made to suppress your masculinity. You were made to lead it. That doesn't come from lectures. It comes from pressure. It comes from protocols repeated until they rewrite your circuitry. Because everything you feel, the hunger for power, the fire of competition, the rage when you're boxed in, all of that is raw fuel. It is not evil. It is not a problem. It is power waiting for purpose. And purpose without structure dies. So you give that power a path. You give it repetition. You give it obedience to time. That is how you channel instinct into command. Not by rejecting it, but by ruling over it. The warrior spirit in you cannot be medicated. It cannot be, it can only be mastered. And mastery does not come by chance. It comes by choosing structure when comfort calls. It comes by doing the hard thing first. It comes by waking up and stepping into the fire you designed. You don't wait for the world to respect you. You train until your nervous system demands respect without saying a word. That is the difference between a man who has instincts and a man who governs them. The first is unstable. The second is unstoppable.